Hello, dear friends. A wolf once disguised himself in the skin of a sheep that he caught in his raids, and managing to blend in with the rest of the flock, he mercilessly killed the white few lambs. Moral of the story: wolves in sheep's clothing will never cease to be wolves. Sooner or later, they will show themselves for what they really are. Opinion piece. The art of deception. Wolves in sheep's clothing. They steal every idea to reverse it. Dismantling the theater of fear. Darkness will not win the war. New sovereign economic paradigm. Wikipedia acknowledges the existence of Nesara. The Great Reset versus the Financial Reset. Ascension will put an end to the whole Greek tragedy. Let's start. According to Steve Biko, the World Economic Forum wants us to own nothing, and while conditions are pushing many people in that direction, Solidarity people have been suggesting a universal basic income for years. The Forum has taken it up, as they did with the idea of a grand reset versus a global financial reset in freedom, with the downside being that in return for an income you would own nothing. I don't think they will get it. That would leave us in a precarious position. There would be no alternative source of support except from the government. Their intelligence and journalism colleagues own the mainstream media so they can reach a mass audience, while advocates of a free and unconditional universal basic income are left out in the cold. It is the same with Nesara. Wikipedia identifies it as the National Economic Reform and Security Act, a set of economic reforms suggested during the 90s by Harvey Francis Barnard. Barnard stated that the proposals included replacing the income tax with a national sales tax, abolishing compound interest on secured loans, and returning to a bimetallic currency, which would result in 0% inflation and a more stable economy. Barnard's scheme has nothing to do with the authentic Nesara that later morphed into Nesara worldwide. At best, it would be a distraction. At least Wikipedia now acknowledges that Nesara exists, after saying it was a conspiracy theory. But now they describe the proponents of the real act as cult members. I have seen other Wikipedia cases that support the dark side narrative. The swamp steals whatever good ideas their opposition has, and then spreads them as their own through their media, and ridicules the true proponents as conspiracy theorists, crackpots, occultists, etc. We are warned not to expect a quick resolution. Many intelligence gurus say that currency revaluation will occur tomorrow. If it did in that case, that would be its chances. What would be its chances of success? There is still what Mike Kinsey calls the darkies, although they are rapidly disappearing. It is the environment safe enough for light-worker philanthropy. The darkies have voted for what we already know. I prefer to wait until they no longer have control of the organizations before starting humanitarian philanthropy. Otherwise, I can see all the fraudulent applications, the attempts to entrap, divert, defeat, and steal. We oppose a force that has grown over the centuries and occupies the upper echelons of not only most government bureaucracies, but also most other elements of civilized society. End of the drama. Some sudden events, such as the wave of lava on the Ring of Fire, will cause a large number then to leave. Ascension will put an end to all the drama, but until then, we will fight them in court. In the meantime, we do not break laws. We do not store biological weapons in hospitals. We do not use people as human shields, because we are dealing with people who do. It may take longer than expected. Dictatorships may move faster than democracies, but they do not have the basis in decency that allows them to last. If currency revaluation were to come soon, would any of us trust an obscure government to administer a universal basic income program? I suggest we wait until we have ethical and trustworthy governments again. Whatever we do, I encourage you to shift from in quotes, "we want it now" mentality, if we see it in ourselves, to a more mature and balanced service mentality. JFK's request has never been more pertinent, in quotes. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. It is time for us to do for our country if we want a country that serves and protects us. I ask that we refuse to be stampeded. Let us slow down and relax, knowing that time is on our side and there is a great plan in place that will not fail. The convoys of worldwide freedom showed us the great extent of worldwide support. From what I can see, the dark ones want to stampede because we are more manageable with fear. The dark has won many battles, but will not win the war. The final victory will be for the light and love. It will welcome all who are willing and able to rise in consciousness and unite us all. If we relax in that belief and knowledge, that in itself would go a long way towards defeating the dark's plans by tipping the collective consciousness toward manifesting that awareness. Sovereign economic system. An economic system is a form of organization of the economy that the society undertakes to manage and administer the resources at its disposal. In simpler words, an economic system is the set of rules that govern the economy of a geographical area. Depending on the characteristics of the economic system, we can distinguish between two main types: those that give more power to the state and those that give more importance to the freedom of choice of individuals. The adjective sovereign means that it exercises or possesses supreme and independent authority. New economic paradigm and inalienable human rights. The sovereign economic system projects us into the future to a new economic paradigm, where the creation of value is the prerogative of the individual, who, ceasing to depend on third parties, frees himself from the condition of blackmail and slavery, and puts himself in a position to fully express his own gifts for his full realization and for the welfare of the whole community. Inalienable human rights according to an Italian page of natural law. The life of human beings has always been intimately linked to the exchange of goods and services. Such exchanges have been included for some time in the so-called commerce. The latter presupposes the use of a commonly accepted instrument intended to facilitate the exchanges themselves, through the attribution of a nominal value, linked or not to a counter value. For example, before 1971, the nominal value of banknotes in circulation was guaranteed by the possession of a certain amount of gold. Following the Bretton Woods International Agreements on Trade and Financial Relations, physical money in circulation was freed from its gold equivalent, becoming a currency without a counter value, but accepted exclusively on the basis of the user's trust in the issuers, which legitimized its use. The sovereign economic system projects us into the future through a new economic paradigm where the creation of value is the prerogative of the single individual, who, no longer dependent on third parties, frees himself from the condition of blackmail and slavery and becomes able to fully express his competencies for his full realization and for the welfare of the whole community inalienable human rights. Just as the quantity and speed of blood circulation guarantee the proper functioning of the organs and the health of the human body, the monetary mass circulating in society guarantees the well-being of each individual. Trade. Trade, therefore, is based on the circulation of commonly accepted and therefore legitimate currencies, such as the euro, not belonging to the communities, as it should be, but to private credit and banking entities. These entities use money created out of nothing, without counter-value, as an instrument of blackmail and enslavement of the whole human race, through primary and secondary seigniorage, forcing individuals into a form of perennial subjection. However, unlike what happens in the human body, where the bone marrow autonomously replenishes blood in case of shortage, and where always autonomously the heart guarantees the fluidity of blood circulation, society does not deal autonomously with the production and circulation of the right amount of money, making use of external entities that have the power to issue and control the circulation. Economic system at the service of the human being and not the other way around. The sovereign economic system based on ethics, trust and above all on the ownership of value lays the foundations of the reactivation of the economy, therefore for the rehabilitation of the social body. An economic system must be at the service of the human being and not the other way around. The sovereign economic system is a true blood transfusion with the introduction of a new plasma into society. This corporate body, strongly awakened first by a financial crisis and then by a corrupt political will, needs resuscitation. The sovereign economic system is the new economic paradigm, the system that puts the human being back at the center and gives back to him the ownership and control of the value derived from him and corresponding to him. Since there is no obligation to use a fiat currency, but it is obsessed by tacit consent, it is essential to be clear that any system that is intended to be used depends exclusively on the trust that the individuals place in the system itself. Theatre of Fear. Dismantling the Theatre of Fear by Catherine Bill. I have seen a couple of articles that reminds us how important the focus, thoughts, words, and projections of humankind are, particularly at this historical moment when the conscious community fervently desires to bring us into the new benevolent earth that is coming. There seems to be evidence that our thoughts can directly influence our physical reality. Many in the spiritual community accept that this is so, and some of the more outspoken members of the scientific community agree. If we allow ourselves to be drawn into the theater of fear that surrounds us, this focus on potential disaster can inadvertently help perpetuate the frightening circumstances of the world. However, if we can ignore the wailing of the diminishing voices of darkness, those non-benevolent energies should disappear faster as their full supply of fear drains away. The theater of fear has been well constructed and reinforced for millennia. Humankind has been a captive audience but there have been holes in the cutting. Some of the floorboards have disintegrated and the actors are falling off at an ever-increasing rate. The stage is becoming depopulated. We begin to realize that we are listening and over-recording rather than a live performance. Somewhere, someone is waiting to open the catching for the last time, turn off the projector, and turn on the house lights. It seems we can accelerate this process by deliberately stepping away from the crumbling stage and focusing on the new landscape ahead. Regardless of when the final revelations arise, we can still see, imagine, and create, at least in our minds, the new panorama we long to experience. Negativity. Archangel Michael speaks of negativity by Sharon Stewart. Negative energies abound. Negative energies abound. You are all affected by the negative energies that surround and permeate every part of your planet. This is what we want to free you from: negativity. The less you enact negativity, the better it will be for everyone, including yourself. It is simple to change your mind, to take back control of your thoughts and make them more positive. But your systems tell you that it is difficult, that it will take years to go through therapy and groups, and that it's not even worth starting. This is incorrect. Those who are negative 10 or 15 years from now will find themselves on the wrong side of life, as many will have transcended this and overcome them. Do not allow negativity in yourself or others. When you sit with those who are negative, they permeate your own being. Your high frequency is of absolute consent for the betterment of the world now. Unless you transmute all negativity, you will carry it. And when you carry it, you will express it and attract it. Learn to transmute. It's necessary. With this in mind, I ask you again this week to become the violet flame and transmute the negativity that has fallen upon the Ukraine area. The war that was desired will not be, and it is of utmost urgency that the negative energies that permeate this area be removed so that light dwells there instead of darkness. With these reversals, the demon's home on earth will be lost. This is an important task, and you can help others to do this now. Surprise! Surprise geomagnetic storm. The Earth's magnetic field was supposed to be quiet on April 10th. Instead, a strong G3 class geomagnetic storm erupted. At the apex of the disturbance, auroras crossed the Canadian border into the northern US. What caused the storm? The prime suspect is a cannon fire from a solar flare, which hit the Earth's magnetic field on April 8th. The impact was weak and at first appeared to have little effect. The geomagnetic turmoil increased on April 9th as the Earth passed into the strongly magnetized wake of the flare. The arrival of an unrelated solar wind stream on April 10th tipped conditions for a category G3 storm. Coded radio emission. The geomagnetic storm transmitted high-frequency coded radio emissions. They have a particular sound characteristic of transauroral propagation. Some say it sounds like bubbling through water. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.